You've escaped tutorial hell, you finished a few prototypes, but now you're stuck on choosing what game to actually finish. In the next 10 minutes, I'll help you find an idea that you can actually release, not just dream about. This is the system that I use to release multiple of my own games. So just grab your notes and we'll get started straight away. All of this advice is taken from the 5th module inside of Smartini, which is all about preparing for your own game. So we'll walk through everything about starting your first game. We'll start by finding a game idea that you can actually finish, filtering out the bad ones, and how to start planning for your first game, like how to start planning out the tasks and so on. So this video is for someone that has already escaped tutorial hell, or unlikely you haven't fallen into this trap. You built a few experiments, and the key point is that you built a few small prototypes. So what I usually say is that you should know roughly 80% of the things that you're making in a game, like following the 80-20 rule, which you probably heard about before. 80% are things that you should know beforehand, and the 20% that's an opportunity for you to learn. So you should learn like roughly 20% of the things we're making in a game. That should be like completely new to you. And the 80-20 rule is a rule that I follow because I personally found that this is like the sweet spot for learning new things, as well as actually being realistic and actually finishing the things that you want to finish. Because if you do more, then sure, you can maybe finish it even, but then you're going to rely so much on tutorials, guides, or even AI. So you're not going to learn like even 20%, you may be going to learn like 10% if you don't follow the 80-20 rule. So you should know roughly 80% of the idea that we're going to find out. So how do we find game ideas? What I usually like to do is just break them into three different categories of finding game ideas. The first one is mechanic first, the second one is theme first, the third one is just remix. And mechanic first, that's basically where you start with one mechanic, so you have a blank document in front of you right now, and you just think about one mechanic. You can think about one mechanic that would be fun in your game and you want to like build a game around. So you shouldn't focus on the core game loop right now, just focus on one mechanic if you choose this one. So an example of mechanic first is basically you have an empty document and you think, for example, you can only move while reloading. For example, that's one mechanic that you could build a game around. So that doesn't say anything about the theme, doesn't say anything about the game loop, the art style, whatever. That's just one mechanic, and that's where you start. You have that one mechanic and you build around that. For beginners, I recommend you either do mechanic first or theme first. I don't recommend remix first. If this is your first game, that should be like more of prototype. So for example, before you ever make your first game, you could do remix first to like make a prototype where you, for example, make Flappy Bird. But you don't want your first full game, which you can actually release, to just be a copy of Tetris or Flappy Bird. We want this to be original and we want it to be something that we can be proud of. So either choose mechanic first or theme first. Theme first, you could probably guess it, that's where you choose one theme. For example, like a ghost doing chores in a haunted house, for example. So the theme is basically a ghost doing chores in a haunted house. That's the theme and you build around that. So if you, for example, have your mechanic, then you obviously have to find out your theme afterwards, but the core game is going to be built around that one mechanic. So when you, for example, are describing your game, you're going to describe this one mechanic. Or if you choose theme first to make your full idea, then you're going to like describe a game based on that theme. Just in short, doesn't matter if you choose mechanic first or theme first. You can just have a blank piece of paper, a blank document, whatever, and you can try to think of either a mechanic or a theme, just whatever comes to mind. Just sit down on your computer, write down everything. There's no dumb ideas, even though it might be cringe to say, but no ideas are cringe. Just write down everything so you don't have like a full mind. Just write down the things that you're thinking about. And after you have either one mechanic or one theme, or you might even have like more ideas which you've written down, that's just a bonus. But you should at least have one mechanic, one theme. And after that, what you're going to do is you're going to make a core game loop idea around that. So for example, if you choose the theme, a ghost doing chores in a haunted house, if that was your theme, for example, then you want to make a core game loop around that, because you can't just have a game loop around a ghost doing chores. That would be completely boring. You need to have like some high score system, you need to have some upgrades. You don't need both, but preferably you would have some like replayability to it. And you would have win conditions. For example, when do you win? Is that by getting a new high score, unlocking a new level, whatever, as well as a losing condition. So in most cases, that's basically where you just die. But if your game is more unique than just dying, like for example if the ghost is like spotted by a human, then that can be your lose condition. So if you're following along like in real time, then you can pause the video now, just write down all your ideas, get it very clearly in your head about the result that you want to have in the end. This is very important. Have it very clearly in your mind what you want to achieve when you're actually done. Try to find that image out right now, try to imagine it in your head and describe it in your document as good as possible. So that's awesome. Now we found a few ideas, but not ideas are going to be good. Like some are like objectively bad, not because they wouldn't be fun, but because we're going to be completely and 100% realistic here. And we're not going to just have an idea be like Skyrim or GTA 6. We're going to have like a realistic idea that we can actually finish, like within a few guidelines. So once you have an idea for a core game loop, I'm going to ask you 3 questions now. If the answer is no for any of these, then you need to adjust the idea. So if the answer is no to any of these, then you have to adjust the idea. Or if it like completely doesn't fit, then you need to find a new one. And preferably you have multiple, so you can kind of filter out the good ones and the bad ones by these questions. So the first question, quite obvious, can I finish it in 60 days? Here you kind of have to like evaluate your own skills. Think of how much time you used on your prototypes, how much time you're going to have in the next 2 months to actually work on the game itself. So answer that, can I finish it within 60 days? I don't recommend you do more than that, but that's a topic for another video. Should be within 60 days if this is your first game. The second one is, does it teach me the skills I want? So the 20% that you don't know are these things that would be useful for your future game development. For example, if you really want to make 3D shooters, then you shouldn't make like a 2D puzzle game. You should like stick to what you want to make in the future. So that's awesome. The third one, the last question, to filter out your ideas. Hopefully not all of your ideas are gone now. But the third one is going to be, do I know roughly 80% of the things that I need to make this? This is very important to remember, because if it's less than that, then it's going to be very hard for you to actually finish the project. And that's like our whole point. The whole point of our first game here is to finish it and build the momentum to actually call ourselves game developers and continue to release games in the future. So the entire point is to finish it and like gain the necessary skills for actually completing the game, because completing a game versus making a prototype or like a half-finished project, that's 2 completely different things. We want to release it, we want to release it to the world, we want to market it, we want to learn all these other things that we only learn if you finish it. So do I know roughly 80% of the things that I need to implement? If the answer is no, then you don't need to scrap the entire idea, but just make it simpler. Find out how you can make that idea as simple as possible. Like this is your first game, it's not going to be a masterpiece. That's not the point here either. So don't be a perfectionist. 80%, that's the max. If that means your game would be like quite bad, then it doesn't matter. Like honestly, that's not the point of our first game here. So I recommend that you just scope it down. If you don't know like in and out 80% of the things that you need to do to actually make this game. And also if this is like super easy for you, then try to make it a bit advanced, but that's maybe like 1% of the people watching this video. So you probably don't have to think about that. Okay, so now we've found our game ideas, we've filtered out the bad ones. Hopefully you should have one idea that you're thinking that would be awesome to make. You would have a lot of fun making it. You would complete it within 60 days. It's like realistic for you, and you're going to learn new things when making it. So if you have that idea, then that's awesome. Now we can start preparing for actually developing the game itself. So the first thing I wanted to do is just write down everything about the game. And obviously I can see through the camera, so like I just see black and myself, so I can see if you're writing on pen and paper, if you're writing on Miro or Google Docs, but wherever you're writing, I want you to just write down everything about the game. I'm going to write down every single detail and be as specific as possible here. I promise you this is going to help you a ton. This is something that I learned when I made my first game, that I wish I was more specific about the things that I was making, because then you're going to focus on building like the whole game instead of just building one system at a time. So you're future-proofing yourself much more if you actually go more into detail about everything in your game, and you have this clear image in your mind about the like result you want to have in the end, which I talked about before. So I want you to write down all the details. This is going to be the project scope, like how big is the game. This is going to be the core loop, win and lose conditions, what's the replayability, all of that. So the genre, what makes this genre good? What are some like key points in this genre that are needed to make a fun game in this genre? So write down your genre. Then your art style. Is it going to be pixel art, 2D models, vector art, whatever? The art style, very important. And the theme. So is it going to be like a haunted house, a sunny day, like whatever the theme is going to be. And the last one should be your release date. So for most of you, or if you think you could finish it in roughly 60 days, then set the release date in 60 days. But don't get too eager yet, because we still have one last thing that we need to do, and that's plan out our milestones through the entire development process. So this is going to help us a ton with organizing the project moving forward always, and not focusing on small things. So what I wanted to do is have, for example, different milestones. You can call them whatever you want. I'm very like boring, so I just call it alpha v1, beta v1, beta v2, for example. That's what I call it. But you can call it whatever you want, as long as you like can separate the different milestones. Doesn't really matter. Like, it's your game. No one's going to see the milestone names. So do whatever you think is the most organized and the most fun. And you should have these milestones for like significant changes in your game. So for example, when you make the core mechanic, that should be your first milestone. Like, have the core mechanic of the game finished. Like, the second milestone could be like a core game loop. Third milestone could be like replayability. The fourth one could be like a main menu, start menu, so that users could actually play the game. Like, not good yet, but you have like a simple main menu, a simple start menu, so you can actually restart the game once you die, and you can implement a store or achievements, whatever your game is based on. Like, that should be different milestones. And these milestones should not be like small things. These milestones should be like the core things about the game, the things that are essential, because we should not focus on small polishing things, especially in our first game here. As I said before, the point of our first game here is not to make something perfect, it's actually to finish. And to finish, what we need to put all of our mental focus on, because finishing our first game can be quite hard. We need to focus our entire brain on doing the essential things, the things that we need to make to have a game, like replayability, core game loop, having it look presentable, like these things. But we shouldn't focus on like making the perfect main menu that looks awesome. That's not the point there. You can do that after you release the game, but first you should have your core game. So your first milestones and the first task you're doing should not be polishing things. Just make it very, very rough in the beginning, as long as the code is like expandable and changeable, obviously. But like the visuals and the mechanics don't need to be awesome at first. Just make it exist first. Then you can polish it up later if you want, but that's not a requirement. The only thing we want here is to release the game, not to have like a lot of juice and polish in the game and make it look awesome. That's not the point. That's something you can do after you've released. So plan the essentials first, and the less important, smaller tasks, do that near the end of the project or when we actually released, because we don't want to miss our 60-day deadline because we spent like multiple hours on polishing the main menu. We really don't want that. We can do that after the game is released. So that's awesome. Now you should be fully prepared to make your first game. But as I said, this video was just a little summary of the 5th chapter inside of Smart Indie, the game release course, where you go from someone that is a complete beginner to someone that releases the first game within only 60 days, where you get all of the resources. You get a Trello template so that you can stay organized with your tasks and the milestones that we talked about, as well as a Notion template that has all of the things that you need and is very organized for all of the things that we talked about, like project scope, core game loop, art theme, all of this stuff. And it's also linked to the Trello, as well as like the bonus modules. You get a 60-day blueprint, so you know exactly how you should manage your time to release your first game, no matter like how many hours you have a week to work on it, and also how to plan your game, like very in detail about how to plan a game, like a visual about how to plan your game. Not even to mention that I talk about the process of making the game itself. This was just the preparation. So if you want to make this process 100 times more easy and get insane value, then you can click the first link in the description. You'll also get my personal help if you join today. So everyone that joins today from this video, I'm going to send a message so we can talk from there, and I can guide you through 100% finishing and releasing your first game. No questions asked, you will release your first game if you join Smart Indie. You won't screw this up. So if you want to have that guarantee, click the first link in the description. I'll see you there.